Good late, good early evening, good late afternoon, wherever you are in this great country of ours. North side, south side, east coast, west coast. Welcome back to BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded and part two of the Boy in the Box trial recap. The testimonies so far. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. It's so good to have you with me this evening. And today is pretty big because today it's all about the testimony around the young man in the middle of this case. Now, sure, we won't be able to see him. Oh, who we got here? Hey, how you doing, Mama Bear? Good to see you. As I started to say before greeting Mama Bear, we're gonna cover the testimony of the young man at the center of this trial. Sure, we won't be able to see him because, well, he's a minor. He's 16. He's still under 18. So, well, we will hear him. We just won't be able to see him. So, also, if I want to go ahead and give you a couple warnings right now. Now, let's see. She says, Mama Bear says she's good. Finally caught alive. Been hearing about this case. Hey, Mama Bear, let me go ahead and let you in on something. This was the case, as I've said in my live yesterday, this is the case that got my foot in the door into the true crime community. I want to also shout out on X, formerly known as Twitter, Cat Ain't Canary for bringing this case to my attention last year. So let me go ahead and hit these warnings right up here, starting with the old copyright disclaimer, because this one is all coming from my friends at Court TV. All right, so we got that. We're covered there. Next up is the trigger warning. Now, if this case happens to trigger your mental health, you may want to stay away from it. This is not just for today, but for tomorrow too, because there is a third part coming at high noon tomorrow. High noon my time, 3:00 on the East Coast. There's the trigger warning. And in case you're listening in and audio happens to go out, that is likely either because the young man's name is being mentioned, or it's because of explicit language being used. All right. So now that we're all set, I'm gonna say this as if I were the prosecutor. The state of Florida now calls to the stand RF.
The breaking news is that the alleged victim in the Boy in the Box trial has just taken the stand. Prosecutors say his parents forced him to live in a box-like structure for hours at a time. His father is on trial. Let's go to court.
All right, Ms. Coco, you may begin at your convenience.
Go by tie?
Yes.
Among your friends and your family?
Yes.
Okay. How old are you?
16.
What's your date of birth?
09/07, 2007 by the Vietnamese government.
Is that where you're originally from?
Yes.
Approximately how old were you when you came to the United States?
1.5 years old. I came here in February of 2009.
Okay. And how did you end up coming here?
I was adopted by Tracy and Tim Ferriter.
Okay. And you came, and then that's when you came for the first time into the United States?
Yes.
Now, today, what grade are you in?
10th.
What, in school, what kind of classes are your favorite right now?
Math and science.
Okay. What kind of math classes are you taking?
AP calculus.
Okay. What about science?
AP chemistry for the final arts.
Okay. And so you have that big AP test at the end of the year?
Yes.
Do you know what we're here to talk about?
Yes.
Okay. Is this something, how do you feel about having to come in here and talk about this?
Apathetic.
Okay. Do you feel nervous at all?
Not really.
Is this something you like to talk about?
No.
Do you feel relieved about talking about it?
As I said, I don't have any feelings about it.
So you kind of told us that you came to the United States when you were adopted. I want to talk about who was in your family when you were younger. Okay. You said Tim and Tracy Ferriter were your parents?
Yes.
Did you have any siblings when you were younger?
Yes.
Tell us who your. Okay. Where do you fall in the age range of your siblings?
Second oldest.
Born.
11 or 12.
Okay. Does it sound? When was he born? February?
He was born in February of, yeah.
Yeah, around 2017-ish. Is that right? Or am I wrong?
Let me think.
What grade were you in?
I was in 5th grade.
Okay, you were in 5th grade, so you were in elementary school about the time that he was born.
Yes.
Okay. So 10, 11, around that age?
Yes.
Now, in school, were you close in grade to any of your siblings?
My sister was 2 years, not applicable because he's not in school yet.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about what your family life was like when you lived in Florida. How many times did your family live in Florida?
Twice.
Twice. When was the first time?
When I was first adopted until we moved to Arizona.
Okay. How old were you approximately when you moved to Arizona?
I just finished 3rd grade.
Okay, so you're in Arizona, you were in Florida until the 3rd grade.
Yes.
And then in the 3rd grade is when you first were in Arizona.
Yes.
How long did you stay in Arizona for?
I stayed in Arizona for about 4 years.
Okay.
Until halfway through 8th grade.
Okay. So Arizona is 3rd grade through halfway through the 8th grade year.
Yes.
Okay. And so the first time you were in Florida, you were real young, like small elementary school age.
Repeat the question.
Is it fair to say that the first time you were in Florida, you were very young? It was young elementary school age.
Yes.
And then Arizona was elementary school and the very beginning of middle school.
I was there until my middle year of 8th grade.
Until the middle of 8th grade. And then you moved back to Florida.
Yes.
And so when you moved to Florida the second time, you were in the middle of 8th grade. How old were you? It was about 14 years old, seem right?
Yes.
Now, when you moved back to Florida, what time of year was that?
Somewhere in December.
Okay. So somewhere in December of the middle of your 8th grade year.
When I moved to Florida?
When you moved to Florida the second time.
Yes.
And where in Florida, like which town did you move to?
I moved to Jupiter.
And is that where your family's house was in Jupiter?
Yes.
And so did your whole family move with you?
Yes.
And what school did you start at?
I started at Independence Middle School.
Is that a school in Jupiter?
It's a school in Jupiter.
Was it close to your house?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about kind of how your family was run with Tim and Tracy, the defendants. Who was the person in your family who was in charge of setting the rules?
Tim.
Okay. Who was the person in your family that was in charge of deciding kind of what kind of punishment you would get?
Tim.
And who was the one that kind of decided how you would be treated, the person in charge?
Tim.
Now, did Tracy also go along with and support what Tim did?
Yes.
Was it an option for you if you disagreed with a rule or if you wanted to discuss the way you were being treated? Was that something that you could have a discussion with the defendant, Tim?
No.
Now, talk to me about when you moved to Florida. What was the house like?
The house, when I moved back to Florida in 2021?
Yes, December 2021?
Yes.
Yeah, how was the house like?
So the house had a 2-car garage. It had 3 bedrooms, 1 office, and 2 bathrooms. And we also had 2 living rooms and a backyard.
Okay. Tell us who had the bedrooms. Who had what bedroom?
Fiona had a bedroom, Nola had a bedroom, and Tim and Tracy had a room together.
I want to talk to you for a second about something that's already been entered into evidence and see if you recognize or we can talk about some of these photographs, okay?
Okay.
Permission to approach, Your Honor, was already been entered into evidence as states 3A through C.
Granted.
Okay, so I'm showing you this is already in evidence. The jury's already seen it. States 3A through C. Do you recognize what room we're looking at?
Yes.
Which room is that? In these pictures, there's like some mattresses on the floor in Pierce's room. Is that what it was like when you were living there?
No.
Were those mattresses on there?
No.
In the floor? Do you know where those mattresses were?
That mattress was in either, if it's an inflatable mattress, it was in storage or in my room. If it was an actual mattress, it would come from my room.
Now, you mentioned that there was, thank you. You mentioned first had the office.
Yes.
Where did you sleep?
I slept in an 8x8 room in the garage.
Okay. Was that room built into the garage?
It was built inside the garage.
Inside the garage?
Yes.
Who built that? Or who had it built?
Timothy hired a contractor to build it in December of 2021.
Right, and how do you know that?
Because I was kept in their closet and I overheard the conversation of them having to build it.
Okay. Now, I'm going to approach something that has been entered into evidence already as states 9. Okay?
You may approach. And you can approach freely.
I'm showing you what's already been entered into evidence as states 9. What does that show?
This shows the room.
So is this a picture of the garage kind of from the outside?
Yes.
And then in there, can you see the back wall of the room?
Yes.
Is that the room that you're talking about that you stayed in the defendant's home in Jupiter?
Yes.
I want to talk about what it was like in that room. You said it was about 8x8.
Yes.
Did it have a concrete floor, or what was the floor like?
So the floor was concrete, but I used these little 16 by 16 inch mats of carpet to put down on the floor, so it wasn't so hard.
Okay, so it had a concrete floor, but on top there was a carpet laid on top of it.
Yes.
What kind of furniture did you have in that room?
I had a desk and a bed.
Did the bed have a bed frame, or what was it like?
The bed had no frame, had no box spring. It was just the A mattress on the floor.
Okay. And mattress on the floor, what size of mattress was it?
Size of the mattress was a twin size.
Now, did the room have any windows or any outside light?
No, it only had an air conditioner.
Okay. Let's talk about that air conditioner for a second. Were you allowed to touch or operate the air conditioner?
No.
Were you allowed to turn it on if you were hot or turn it off if you were too cold?
No.
Would you get in trouble if you touched the air conditioner at all?
Yes.
And who did that direction come from?
Tim.
Did the room have any lights?
It had a light, but it was controlled outside the room.
Okay, so if you wanted to turn on the light, is that something that you could do when you were inside the room?
No.
Did you have any control over when the lights were on or when the lights were off?
No.
Who controlled that?
My parents, Tim or Tracy.
Okay. Were there times that you were in the room in the dark?
Yes.
Is that at night sometimes?
Yes, and also during the day.
Okay, so there are periods of time during the day where you would be there in the dark, in the room.
Yes.
What was it like in the room when the lights were off?
It was pitch black. You couldn't see anything.
Would you have to feel your way around to
Yes.
see what's going on? Now, did the room have a bathroom or access to the bathroom?
It had a bucket for my urine and feces, but that was basically it.
Okay, so if you were in the room and you were closed in there and you had to use the bathroom, what was your only option?
Use the bucket.
Now I want to talk about the time frame in Florida. While you were in there, were there times where you were locked in the room, unable to leave, and had to use the bathroom?
Yes.
And did you use the bucket in the corner of the room in order to relieve yourself?
Yes.
Now in Florida, did you ever have to use that bucket for feces?
No.
But did you have to use it to urinate?
Yes.
What about previously? We'll talk about it a little bit more depth. When you were in Arizona, did you ever have to use the bucket for Arizona for feces?
Yes.
Did you have to use it for urine?
Yes.
Because you had to urinate in the room on occasion. How was did the room smell at all?
Yes.
How did it smell? I mean, was it bad?
Putrid. Yeah.
Putrid is how he says that room smelled. What do you think of the alleged victim on the stand so far? We can't see him, but we can hear him, and he is absolutely answering every single question with detail. We'll get a break, get you back into the courtroom exactly where we left off. You won't miss a minute. Stay with us.
Now I paused there because of their detail, because right there they're detailing the box. I refuse to call it a room. In a room, you have a bed. You have a bed. You have a place to put your clothes. You have it set the way you want it, pretty much. You'll have, that's exactly what that is reminiscent as far as movies go. Oh, the Cell. That's exactly what this is reminiscent of. That's what it was, ladies and gentlemen. That was no room. A room you're supposed to feel comfortable in. This is that. When I first heard about this case, and I heard that they did this, I said that was an 8x8 prison. I stand by that statement. We're gonna continue this, and this young man knows everything about it, because it is really sickening. And Mama Bears broke it down. Said it sounds like they took that sense and made it into real life. Absolutely. What they haven't told you yet unless you go back and go back and look at my live stream from yesterday. When this box was constructed, they had a deadbolt and a doorknob on the outside, nothing inside. They had a Ring camera installed inside. Yeah, so you watched the first one, great, right? So you're pretty much coming in on the second one. Then you caught a good day, because, like I said, today it's all about the victim. The only thing missing from this box that pretty much matches a prison cell are iron bars, and that's what this is all about. Now the question is gonna come back to is it tough love parenting, or is it abuse? Let's get back into the courtroom and hear more from this young man.
Back to the Florida courtroom we go. The alleged victim in the boy in the box murder trial is on the witness stand. His father in the same room. The jury listening. We can hear, we cannot see him by court order. Let's rejoin where we left off.
Was there a camera in the room?
Yes.
And what was your understanding?
Water occasionally, but not at a regular basis.
Okay, so there are times when you're given a cup or a water bottle to have in the room.
Yes.
But there are also occasions when you're locked inside the room without anything to drink.
Yes.
Okay. And what about food? Did you ever eat any of your meals in the room?
I ate a majority of my meals in the room.
If you were in the room and you didn't have any food at that time and you were hungry, did you have the ability to get additional food?
No.
Is that something you were allowed to do, to go in the kitchen and get a snack or get additional food if you were hungry?
No.
If you did that, what would happen?
I would get.
Did you get punished?
Yes.
Ronan, did you like being in that room?
No.
Did you want to be in the room?
No.
did it make you feel?
To me, being locked in a room, it's dehumanizing. It's almost as bad as genocide. It's saddening to abuse a child that was just acting like a child, never thinking of what an adult would think to do to a child that would succumb his or her efforts in daily life to succeed, suffering from emotional pain, suffering, trauma.
So, were you, did you have a choice about whether or not to go in that room? Like, were you forced
Yes.
by Tim and Tracy Ferriter to go into the room?
Yes.
If you resisted or, didn't follow their directions, what would happen?
I would be put in the room by physical force.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about, so the period that we're really talking about here is about a 5 or 6 week period in December 2021 to January, the end of January 2022, right? So I want to talk about what the majority of your life was like in that room in Florida. And just so we're clear, when you moved from Arizona, was the room there and ready for you?
Yes.
So you never stayed anywhere else in the house?
No, the room was not ready for me in Arizona, but it was ready for me in Florida.
In Florida, I'm so sorry. When you came from Arizona to Florida, the room had already been finished being specially constructed for you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about kind of what your typical school day was like during that time period, all right? Typically, just on average, what time of the day would you be woken up?
I'd be woken up around 6:30 to 7 o'clock.
And how would you be woken up? Like, how would it be wake up time? Did you have an alarm clock? Would you naturally wake up? How would that happen?
Tim and Tracy would unlock my door.
Okay, so someone would come in?
Yes.
Would your lights have been off and you be in the dark
Yes.
before that? At that point, would you be given the opportunity to go to the bathroom?
Yes.
If you had to use the bucket at that point, sometime during the previous night, what would happen?
I would dump it into the bushes behind the house.
Now, you said that you would wake up sometimes between 6, they would wake you up on average between 6 and 7 in the morning.
Yes.
You would get to go to the bathroom. What would happen when you were done going to the bathroom?
I would be put back in my room or doing household chores around the house.
When you were put back into the room, would you be locked in?
Yes.
And at this point, would you get dressed for school?
Yes.
Where were your clothes kept?
Outside the room.
And so when we say outside the room, like in the garage,
Yes.
would you get breakfast?
Occasionally, yes.
Okay. So were there times, some of those days that they didn't give you breakfast?
Yes.
But were there also lots of days where they did in fact give you breakfast?
It wasn't a lot. It was probably 50-50.
Okay. When you would get breakfast, would that be out in the kitchen with the rest of the family, or where would it be?
It would be either outside or in my room.
Okay. And when you say outside, you mean outside the house?
Yes.
When it was in the room, what typically would you get for breakfast?
Peanut butter and bread and a fruit or something.
Okay, a fruit like something like a banana?
Yes.
And so when you say peanut butter and bread, do you mean just like peanut butter on 2 slices of bread?
Yes.
And those would be brought into your room?
Yes.
And you would have it in the room?
Yes.
Would that be the breakfast almost every day? Or would there be variation?
I'll be the same breakfast every single day.
Now, what would you, while you're eating breakfast in the room, would you have to have anything to do in the room, or what would be happening before you go to school?
I had a sleeve of books and textbooks, but that's all I had.
Okay. Would there sometimes you do homework in the morning?
Yes.
What time approximately, so would you be in the room from the time you got let out at 6 and 7 in the morning until it was time to leave for school?
Yes.
What time approximately do you leave for school?
9 o'clock.
And then you get to school?
Yes.
And school's pretty close, right?
Yes.
And so you did, in fact, attend Independence Middle School while you were here in Jupiter, Florida.
Yes.
Now, at school, would you get lunch?
No, I brought lunch.
Who made that lunch?
Tracy.
And what would be in that lunch?
A plain peanut butter sandwich. Either some sort of chips and a fruit.
Would you be allowed to, if you wanted to buy extra snacks at school?
No.
Were you allowed to have any more snacks than what was given to you in your lunch?
No.
Were you allowed to buy a school lunch?
No.
Did you want snacks?
Yes.
Did the other kids at school have snacks?
Yes.
Is that something that was kind of hard for you? That to see other kids getting snacks and not being able to have them?
Yes.
Now, what time approximately would school be over?
3 o'clock.
And what time would you get home from school?
Around 3:30.
And then when you would get home from school on most days, what would happen?
I'd be put back into my room.
And when you say put back into the room, are you locked in the room?
Yes.
And would you have been allowed to leave the room during that time?
Would
Would you be allowed, or did I confuse you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have the choice if you wanted to say sit in the living room and watch TV after school? Is that something that you could do?
No.
Could you be in the house? In the main house?
No.
Now, so you get back around 3:30, and then how long do you stay in the room in the afternoon?
On most days, until 7 o'clock or dinner time.
Okay. Would you eat dinner in the room or with the family?
In the room.
And are there some times on occasion that you would be allowed to eat dinner with the family?
Yes.
Most of the time, though, where were you eating dinner?
In my room.
And when you're eating dinner in the room, are you locked in the room?
All right, son and father in the same courtroom. Doesn't seem to be a lot of love between them when you watch Dad and you hear the boy. What's the jury thinking? What are you thinking? We'll get you back in the courtroom for more, right where we left off, right after this.
And this is where I hit the pause button as well, just to throw my 2 cents out there. This boy was punished for no apparent reason. And as it goes on and on and on and on, I mean, he is literally being put in a room, put in a prison for just being a kid. He's not allowed to be in the main house as he testified to. He's not allowed to share the same experiences as the other kids. He's just confined to that room. Now, and yes, Mama Bear, it is insane. Now, I want you to think about this. Think of what a misbehaved prisoner in prison has to go through. That prisoner would be in solitary confinement. I don't know exactly how many hours on the day that prisoner would be in solitary confinement, but he's in there nonetheless. All by himself. You are pretty much left in your own conditions. This, like Mama Bear said it's like at least in a prison, that prisoner's under 23-hour lockdown. For this kid, Mama Bear is saying that this is pretty much the exact same thing, and I tend to agree. The only difference is he's in there for 16 to 18 hours of the day. The rest of the time, if he goes, he's in school. So if anybody want to say that's not that anybody want to tell you that this is tough love parenting, I've got 2 words for you. Hell no. That's not tough love parenting. That is straight up abuse. Dehumanizing abuse. I've said many times over whatever in child abuse cases that no child deserves to be abused like that. It could be physical for what he's going through. I can tell you flat out, this being locked in that box for 16 to 18 hours at a time, that's mental abuse. That's emotional abuse. That's the kind of abuse our trigger warnings were made for. Don't believe me? Let's see. Mama Bear says she recognizes the behavior from her then deceased ex-husband as an act like that man on the ouch. I get it. I absolutely get it. Because as anybody saw, as everybody was watching, that everybody's got their eyes locked on Timothy Ferriter, the defendant. He is sat there still as a stone. You look in his eyes, you see not one bit of emotion coming from him. None. That's how she can sit here and tell me this stuff. First-hand knowledge. Well, maybe kneel on rice and nice and backward and do backwards duck walks to hurt their shoulders. Oh my God. Mama Bear, I have the link to join this live panel if you want to come on in. I mean, I know it's just the 2 of us, but still, if you want to jump on in so I can hear you speak your piece, please. I'll be happy to have you. But still, it hurts my heart to even hear stuff like that or witness stuff like this. But hey, this is what we're getting. This is what we got here with this case. This was a 14-year-old boy, 16 now, and he's on the witness stand reliving this. And this is her ex-husband has been gone now for 2 years. Well, Mama Bear, I consider you a survivor of all this. We're gonna go back into the courtroom, and we're gonna hear from this young man a little bit more. And like I said, right now this is just direct testimony. Imagine what cross-examination is going to be like.
for feces?
Yes.
Did you have to use it?
Of Maya trial coverage today on Court TV.
When you were in Arizona, did you ever have to use the bucket for Arizona for feces?
Yes.
Did you have to use it for urine?
Yes.
Because you had to urinate in the room on occasion, how was did the room smell at all?
Yes.
How did it smell? I mean, was it bad?
Putrid.
Welcome back. We've been listening to stories about a concrete floor, a twin-size mattress, and a bucket to use the bathroom. Just some of the conditions the alleged victim in the boy in the box trial says he had to endure for years. He's testifying right now in front of his father, his mother, also their defendant, Tim Ferriter, charged with child abuse. Let's pick it up.
Allowed in my room was my school computer.
Computer games on it at all ever?
No.
Is that something that a lot of middle school kids do?
Yes.
Is that something that kid would talk about doing at school?
Yes.
Did you want to play games on your computer?
Yes.
Now, we talked a little bit about the lights being off at night. Were there times where the lights were off during the day?
Yes.
And approximately when that would happen, how long would that go on for? Like, would it be for 5 minutes or would it be for longer than that?
We'll be around for a couple hours.
Now, I want to talk about other times in Florida. Were there times in Florida where you were, in fact, outside of the house?
Yes.
Or inside the house itself?
Yeah, there were times where I was inside the house.
There were some occasions where you were allowed to be in the living room.
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Or in the kitchen with the rest of the family?
Usually I was just in the living room doing chores, or in the kitchen also doing chores.
Now, was there time in Florida where you were outside of the house?
Yes.
What would you be doing outside of the house, mostly?
Raking leaves, moving shells. Yeah.
Now, when you were outside of the house, are you under the direct supervision of your parents, or are you kind of out there by yourself?
They had a camera to watch me, but it was another Ring camera. But otherwise, I was not supervised while I was outside.
So you'd be outside of the house by yourself for periods of time?
Yes.
Now, were there a couple occasions where maybe you did get to play or interact with your siblings outside?
Yeah.
But for the most part, when you were outside, what were you having to do?
Yard work, chores.
And could you, when you were doing the yard work or the chores, if you got hot or you needed a drink of water, were you allowed to just go in the house and get those things?
No.
Were there times where the front door was locked and you couldn't get in?
Yes.
What would you have to do in that circumstance? Would you just have to wait outside or something
I had to
else?
wait outside.
Okay, until they decide to let you in?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about, in Florida, were there instances where the defendant in this case, Tim Ferriter, acted towards you in a way that was physically aggressive?
Repeat the question.
Was there ever any physical aggression towards you in Florida?
There was instances of grabbing and pushing, but otherwise, no.
Okay.
Physical contact such as punching, hitting, smacking.
Right, none of that happened during the time frame in Florida?
No.
Were there times where he was verbally aggressive to you in Florida?
Yes.
What kind of things would he say to you?
It would say, this is a piece of, you better pick it up. Yeah.
Would he call you names?
No.
Would he yell at you?
Yes.
Would he scream at you?
Yes.
Did it appear to you, based on how he was interacting with you, that he was angry at you?
Yes.
And is the same true for Tracy?
No.
Now, because of his verbal aggression, did you have a belief as to whether or not he could, if you didn't listen to him, or that there was a risk, or that were you concerned that he would be physically aggressive to you?
I could safely assume that he could cause bodily harm to me.
Overruled.
And is that based on some of your prior experiences in Arizona?
Yes.
Overruled.
Now, I want to talk about Arizona now, okay? That's where you lived immediately prior to coming to Florida. We ended up talking about Florida, about times where you were outside and couldn't come in the house. Did that happen in Arizona as well?
Yes.
Were you locked outside?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I had to move rocks and stones and shrubs and cactus around the lawn, but I was unable to go inside to eat or get water.
Now, in Arizona initially, when you said I think we said that you moved there in early elementary school.
Yes.
You said, I think, around 3rd grade?
Yes.
Initially there, did you have a room inside the house?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me how the rooms were initially when you moved to Arizona.
So, do you want to describe the room?
Yeah.
All right. The room had a desk, it had a dresser. It even once had a coffee table for me to play chess, and it had a bed with a mattress, box spring, bed frame.
Well, this is riveting testimony. We need a break as we approach the top of the hour. You won't miss a bit of it. We'll get the break. We'll get you back in the courtroom. Kelly Craft will be here. Stay with us.
If you're just joining us, this is day 2 of the recap of the Boy in the Box trial. BETHEA'S BYTE Reloaded. Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. I want to thank you so much for joining me. To say that this testimony is riveting is an understatement. We get our victim telling us every single detail of what he had to endure from a physical standpoint. What the box looks like. About the bucket. What he's being fed. What he's not being fed. I don't know about anybody else, but between me and Mama Bear in chat, all this lines up as abuse. And Tim Ferriter is going down for it. I feel that in my bones. And for me personally, I know what abuse looks like because as a foster child at one point, I suffered my fair share. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and be a little transparent with you. I've been bounced around from one foster home to another, and each one about as bad as the last. And I would as far as food goes. Now, let's just say I was raised by Southern parents. The ones that took me in and gave me love, gave me all this direction, gave me knowledge and things I know now. I got a father from South Carolina. I got a mother from North Carolina. Both of them, God bless their souls, they loved themselves some greens. Greens, what do I mean by greens? For all of you who don't know, we're talking collard greens, we're talking mustard greens, we're talking turnip greens, we're talking cabbage. That's the kind of stuff they would eat and enjoy. That's the kind of stuff I would love to eat and enjoy. Except there's just one problem with that. on sale for 88 cents. I probably would take you up on that one, but there's just one problem I'm about to get to. It's just one problem with that. As a foster child, I was literally force fed the stuff daily. I was literally force fed greens until I couldn't take it. Every time I'm blessed to be a part of a cookout, a church function where food is being served, and greens is right there being offered. I would love to partake in it, but that 3.5, 4-year-old version of me won't let me do it. Why? Because the moment I put one in my mouth, I gag almost to the point of vomiting, because I was force fed it at 3.5, 4 years old. So if that just being force fed greens is bad for me, and here I am at 47 years of age, I can only imagine what RF is going through in the box, just being fed peanut butter on 2 slices of bread every single day. What that young man should be having, and I'm quoting WWE Hall of Famer Booker T on this one. Normally he would say that just about certain wrestlers, but for this kid, he will say not just bread, not just water. He needs to be on some meat. But that's not happening for him. He's locked up in that box for 16 to 18 hours a day with nothing. Yeah. Yeah. He needs some meat and potatoes. That's right. And for what? For what? I'm gonna go ahead and switch over right now. We've had the direct examination, and now we're gonna go to the cross examination. Let's see. Was the parents getting paid to care for them? I believe they were, but I don't want to speculate. And I think I know where you were going with that. I don't want to speculate, but I do know where you're going with that. If they were getting paid to take care of this young man, they were probably using him just as a paycheck, not caring about him or what. If so, that would have been yeah, you're right. If that would have been motive, because there are abusive foster parents who would do their child like that just for the money. Just for the money. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get yourself set up for the cross examination of RF.
So we're gonna, I want to talk a little bit about what the state.
Hold on, just a second. All right, so once again, now that I'm switching up here, I'm going to, once again, give you the trigger. I mean, the copyright first. The trigger warning. For Mama Bear, in case she doesn't hit the pin message. If you want to come up, I'll be more than happy to have you. And one last note: if during the testimony, if the audio goes out, it's because either RF's name is mentioned out loud, or a lot of explicit language being used, likely by the defendant, excuse me. All right, so now let me go ahead and get my chat caught up. I'm going to
So we're gonna, I want to talk a little bit about what the state has said. I know you've been sitting there for a long time, so if you need a break, let me know, okay?
All right.
Okay. So do you think it's fair to say that you talked a lot about your time at Tim and Tracy's house on direct examination, right? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
and nope, that's okay. Since we're recording, you do have to answer out loud, okay?
Okay.
So if I ever say if that's a yes, that just mean I want to get it on the record, all right?
All right.
Okay. Do you think it's fair to say that it's hard to think of the good memories because everyone around you now has a bad image of Tim and Tracy?
Objection, improper.
Overruled. You can answer.
We say that question again?
Sure. Do you think it's hard to think of good memories when everyone around you has a bad image of Tim and Tracy in their mind?
I can easily recall the good times, but not. I don't have a bad image of Tim and Tracy. They just made a mistake. They were just acting out of frantic surprise of my actions. They weren't. I believe that they weren't trying to do any harm.
Yeah.
I believe that people should recognize that was a mistake and forgive them and move on.
Family schedules that you all had in your house, okay?
All right.
So you have 3 brothers and sisters, right?
Yes.
And right now he's probably about 2 or 3 years old.
I think he's either 4 or 5.
Okay. I'm sorry. I probably have. Tracy took care of him a lot, right?
Yes.
And Tracy was the one who normally stayed home.
Yes.
And Tim worked a lot.
Yes.
Is it fair to say that Tim was, for the most part, Tim was the one that was working and Tracy was the one who was at home?
Yes.
And Tim also traveled abroad a lot for work.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So she has softball, right?
Yes.
I think she played soccer too.
She played soccer in Florida before we moved to Arizona.
Oh, okay. But softball was her main thing.
Yes.
And she would have a lot of practices, right?
Yes.
You would go to some of those practices. So I think did concert band, right?
Yes.
So there was marching band and concert band.
Yes.
And Tracy would be responsible for driving her around to this stuff as well.
Yes.
You had your activities. I know you tried track, right?
Yes.
I think in Florida you did chess for a little bit.
Yes.
So Tracy's kind of running around trying to keep everybody at their various activities. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. You did this with the state, but I want to establish a little bit of a clear timeline for the jury. So you were adopted in, I have the date in front of me, in 2009?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you're adopted in 2009, and then your family lives in Florida when you're a baby, right?
To be honest, we didn't. I don't know where I lived between in my younger years, because I can't remember because I was a toddler.
Fair enough.
But
Will you take my word for it that for a couple of years you?
Sustained.
You remember living in Arizona after that, right?
no, I remember living in Florida. Then I moved to Arizona. Then I moved back to Florida. That's all. That's all I remember.
Okay, so you're in Arizona from about when you're about 11 or 12 all the way up to December of 2021. Is that right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I think you were a little younger, but all the way up to December 2021, and then you moved to Florida, right?
Yep.
And you ran away around end of January 2022? The most recent time?
Yes.
Okay. So the time frame we're talking about that you stayed in Florida most recently in Tim and Tracy's house was end of December 2021 to end of January 2022, right?
Sorry, I'm distracted. Say that again.
That's okay. When you all moved to Florida, the most recent time, it was about Christmas time, December 2021, all the way to end of January 2022 when you ran away,
Yes.
right? Okay. And when you moved, I assume there was no school because it was Christmas time.
Yes.
And your family was moving boxes, trying to get everything packed up, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then after that, you pretty much started school after the Christmas holiday.
Yes.
I want to talk about the different rooms that you had. We'll start with Arizona, okay?
All right.
So the first room you had, not the first room, but what the state was talking about was a room inside the house in Arizona that ultimately had a lock placed on it. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yes.
And that room had a lock placed on.
Yes.
That room had a window.
Yes.
It had a desk.
Yes.
It had a dresser.
Yes.
It had a bed.
Yes.
And it had a closet.
Yes.
And you said it also had a coffee table for you to play chess,
Yeah.
which you're still really good at, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that door was not always locked.
No.
There were times that you could move in and out for freely from that door.
Yes.
Okay. The next room. This room, but use the garage to like watch movies and stuff, right?
Yes.
But this garage room was built specifically for you,
Yes.
and it had a bed,
Yes.
it had a desk,
Yes.
and it had a dresser.
Yes.
And you think it was about an 8x10 or 8x9 room as well.
Yes.
It also had stuff on the walls, right?
Yes.
I think you had like a periodic table on it. Is that a yes?
Yes.
But then sometimes you would get angry and rip that stuff off the
Yes.
walls, right?
Yes.
Tim and Tracy never took that stuff off the
No.
walls. And that room also was not always locked.
That room was always locked.
Okay, so it's your testimony that at no point could you sort of move freely in and out of that room in Arizona.
I cannot. That door was always locked.
Now I want to take you to the room in Florida, which was built in December of 2021, okay?
All right.
That was an 8x8 room, right?
Yes.
That room also had a bed, a desk, a dresser, right?
No dresser.
No dresser, I'm sorry, just a bed and a desk, right?
Yes.
And then the clothes you said would actually be kept outside the room.
Yes.
And part of that was because you would sometimes hide electronics in there, right?
Yes.
And you have like ripped up your clothes before too?
I only done it once, and that was in Arizona, but I don't rip my clothes.
Okay.
But not on a regular basis.
All right, but sometimes when you get angry, or at least one time, you did rip up all your clothes.
Yeah.
Listening to this really interesting testimony from the alleged victim in this case, still ahead, the alleged victim is asked about his behavioral issues and his outbursts on cross. You're watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
And we pause there. The more this cross-examination is going, the more sickening I'm getting. Let's see, Mama Bear's asking, so what did he do to start with to cause him to even do this to the extent of time frame? I honestly, Mama Bear, wish I had a definitive answer for that. I honestly wish I had a direct answer for that. But even I asked this question as testimony continued on from him. What in God's name did he do in order to be treated like that? The daughter had testified he was punished for stealing food. So he took some food. Well, I mean, he for Christ's sake, he was being fed nothing more than peanut butter and bread. Very few snacks. I'm with you on that one, Mama Bear. I am with you. And as far as outbursts, somebody please show me one teenager that has never had an angry outburst, and I'll try to fit him for his wings for heaven, or her wings for heaven. Let me go ahead and get sets to continue this testimonial cross-examination. It should. Oh, and if I didn't do this before, I've got to shout out everybody at Court TV for their extensive coverage of not only the Boy in the Box trial, which I'm covering here at BETHEA'S BYTE, but I want to shout them out for their coverage of the Take Care of Maya civil trial, allegedly with Brittany J. is covering that as well. Well, so everybody at Court TV, also at Law and Crime Network, I'm shouting you both out. Thank you for your extensive coverage. And now.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Kelly Craft. Back to the Boy in a Box trial out of Florida. Prosecutors accused Tim Ferriter of child abuse and false imprisonment after they say he locked his 14-year-old adopted son in a room built in the family garage for up to 18 hours a day. Tim's wife has also been charged, but will go to trial at a later date. So let's get you back into court. On the stand, the alleged victim, RF, on cross-examination.
That Florida room, you weren't warm enough.
It's not that I was warm enough. It was that I was too warm. and we had a fan. We put a fan in my room.
I see. So you had you had sheets and a bed, right? Or like sheets and a pillow.
Yes.
And a blanket.
Yes.
And then you also had the air conditioning unit installed there.
Yes.
Your Honor, can I approach?
You may.
All right, I think attorneys are taking a little sidebar here, so we'd like to welcome our guest for this hour, Andrew Stoltman, trial attorney out of Chicago. Andrew, you joined us from Chicago today?
Yes, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, all right, good. I love having guests from Chicago. Okay, Andrew, I wanted to ask you, so cross-examination. She got up there, and at first, her tone, it seemed a little different when she began asking him a few questions about, did you think that, you had forgotten about these good memories? And then I noticed her tone, the defense counsel's tone, change when she got this great answer from the alleged victim case, saying they made a mistake. I believe people should recognize that and forgive and move on. I don't have a bad image of Tracy. What are your thoughts on cross-examination so far and that particular response right out of the gate?
It's funny, that was the money line, and I can guarantee you defense counsel will blow that up and use that in closing statement because it's really, really powerful. It kind of feeds into the argument, hey, I may not have been the perfect dad. I may have been a disciplinarian. I may not have done it right. I didn't abuse. And that testimony is directly into that. I thought it was great for the defendant.
Okay, and well, we're going to go back into court right now. I'll talk with you more about that a little bit later. So let's stick around for us. Let's get you back to court.
Ronan, this photo.
Ms. Murat,
see that-
the mic when you're going away.
I see that there's posters on the wall there too, and no police came, they weren't there. When you got upset, did you rip up those posters too? Tim and Tracy didn't remove them?
Nope.
And sometimes, I know the state talked about how you weren't allowed to have electronics in your room. Those electronics were removed, right?
Yes.
And is that because of things that you did with electronics?
I didn't do all that. I had nothing wrong with I did go into a bunch of schools things and do some not so legal stuff, and I would factory set school tops and tablets.
Yeah, so they would take away your electronics when you got in trouble with the school for kind of messing with their IT system, right? And I know the state also talked to you about how you were only allowed that school laptop, right?
Yes.
But only to do homework, not to do games.
Yes.
But you also broke that laptop, right?
Yes.
The first thing you said to this jury was that Tim and Tracy made a mistake based on trying to respond to your behavior if they didn't handle it correctly. Is that fair to say? So I want to talk a little bit about that behavior, okay?
Okay.
All right. So would you agree with me that sometimes when you get angry, you throw things,
Yes.
you kick things,
Yeah.
and you punch things?
No.
Do you remember giving a deposition in this case?
Can approach.
All right, we're going to get another question in here for our expert, Andrew Stolman of Chicago. Andrew, we're getting into the behavior. He's talking about it, saying yes, he punched, maybe not, but he did things. So jurors are really getting to hear and get a handle on what was going on inside this household. What's your take?
Yeah, that's a really important piece of puzzle because the defendant is going to say, wild child. This was a poorly behaved child. And it feeds into that argument. I wasn't the perfect parent. This 8-foot by 8-foot room was simply a way to make certain he didn't engage in this crazy behavior. And so I'm really listening closely to this because the more color you can paint, the more meat you can put on the bone, the more the jurors have to say, wait a minute, this dad was pretty reasonable in what he did, or at least it wasn't criminal.
All right, Andrew, thank you. We're going to get in a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We are going to come right back. You are watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice. When we come back, the alleged victim is asked about his outburst, so we will pick things up on the other side of the break. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Kelly Craft. The 17-year-old daughter of Timothy Ferriter told a Florida jury that she would go some days without seeing her younger adopted brother. She also testified the brother would be punished for minor things and that both of her parents were involved with the punishment. Right now, we are hearing from the alleged victim, the adopted son. So let's get you back into court.
And when you were at Tim and Tracy's house, you would have outbursts, right?
Yes, but it would not cause physical harm to myself or others.
Okay, but it would include things like breaking glass?
I've never broken. No, well, I stepped on one of my picture frames because I was in a dark room, just feeling my way around. But yeah.
So are you saying you've never broken glass at their house before, or that was the only time you broke glass?
Yes.
Okay. Which one? That was the only time, or you've never broken glass?
The only time where I've broken glass is when I stepped on the picture frame.
Okay. And you'd agree that when you were at their house, you would rip things and throw things?
Yes.
And I think in your words, you intentionally broke the rules you knew about at least 5 times a week?
Usually more, but yes.
I want to start by talking about sort of before really young age, but from when you were about 10 years old, okay?
Okay.
At that time, you were going to school, I think at Sunrise Elementary and Immaculate Heart. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. At that time, you were having those outbursts we talked about at home.
Yes.
And if something happened at school, like some conduct at school, obviously your teachers were talking to Tim and Tracy, right?
Yes.
So then Tim and Tracy would find out and then they would react.
Yes.
And that would include discipline sometimes,
Yes.
right? At Sunrise Elementary School, do you remember punching a student? I know you were young.
Objection, Your Honor. Also time frame.
Sustained.
Do you remember?
Let me have you approach it, unless you want to withdraw the question, Ms. Moran.
I believe the time frame is right, Judge.
So approach.
All right, still with us, trial attorney Andrew Stolman. Okay, I missed a little bit of that, Andrew. Maybe you caught it. Sustained, now they're going to approach. I thought that was a valid question, but I maybe missed a little bit. What's your take?
thought it was a valid question too, and it kind of feeds right into the defense's argument throughout this case. I don't know if there was possibly a pretrial ruling on, specific questions that could or could not be asked. I was a little surprised to see that, and unfortunately, I don't think we'll find out what they were talking about. But I was surprised.
Yeah, me too. Okay, Andrew, sidebar is over. Let's get you back into court.
Well, do you still remember the question, sir?
I punched a kid.
You want to read?
Yeah. When you were at Sunrise Elementary, you were about 9 years old. Do you remember punching another student?
Do you have a name for that student?
I don't.
I don't recall punching a student.
That's okay. You did have some behavioral issues at Immaculate Heart too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you remember kicking a ball at another student repeatedly?
Do you have a name for the student?
I don't.
I think I do, yes.
Okay. Do you remember putting your finger and thumb and pushing up on a boy's throat and pushing him up against the wall at Immaculate Heart?
Yes.
And there was some instances of stealing at Immaculate Heart?
Yes.
Okay. So after Immaculate Heart, Pierce is born in February of 2017, right?
Yes.
So for a little while in there, you're still at Immaculate Heart, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you ended up getting a technology breach at school, right?
Yes.
Can you explain what happened
A technology.
at Immaculate Heart?
Can approach.
Okay, we have another sidebar here. I believe we're going to toss to break real quick, and we will be right back, so don't go anywhere. You are watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
A Florida father accused of locking his son in a box in the garage with a bed, a bucket, and a camera.
He was locked in a room for hours at a time.
Police say this abuse went unnoticed for years.
There are ring videos that the state provided of the child lying.
He faces up to 40 years.
I'm not sure they're going to be able to justify it. What's going on in this house?
Boy in a Box trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
But you're going
Okay, let me try this again. All right, now that I'm unmuted, let me try this again. Mama Bear brought up a great point. The fact that he may have oppositional defiant behavior. So do most teens. What we call it simply just having an attitude. So how is he a horrible kid? I don't see it. I know Mama Bear doesn't see it. As far as normalcy, this is the best you get. But the only thing that's not normal about this kid is the fact that his adopted parents treats him all kinds of different, locks him away in a makeshift prison for 16 to 18 hours a day. Oh, welcome Welcome Elizabeth Lander to the chat. How you doing? Was he diagnosed with ODD? I'm not. I've heard about it. Here's what I'm suggesting. Everybody, what are you doing on tomorrow? Because tomorrow is, I'm covering everything the psychologist said and testified to, and that's gonna be the end of the recap. So if you're here Monday, 3:00 time, high noon my time, we'll get the question answered just like this and then some. All right. Yeah. Reactive attachment. That's another thing they said, Elizabeth. He has reactive attachment disorder. Even if that's the case, then locking them up in an 8x8 box isn't doing that much good either. A kid just being adopted from, okay, I'm gonna take it this far. A kid that has been adopted from somewhere outside of these United States, that kid, male or female, is gonna need just as much love, attention, and affection as the kids that are already in the home. You can't isolate these kids. And yeah, many kids in that situation doing abuse have bad separation issues, emotional issues. Yes. And all this is doing is making his situation 10 times or more worse. These are kids that need good parents. And as far as what we've been hearing in testimony, Timothy Ferriter is not gonna make Father of the Year. And if the testimony is similar for Tracy Ferriter, she is definitely not gonna make Mother of the Year. Kids with RADs are very difficult to handle and need intensive intervention. Absolutely. But locking them up in an 8x8 box, you need to read up on the case. Hey, hang on just a second, Liz. I'm gonna do you a favor. Hang on. Before we go back to further cross-examination, I'm gonna do you a favor. If I can get my dog on Microsoft Word up and running quick. Just dealt with kids with RADs for 33 years. I commend you and I applaud you. You have the patience of a saint. Let's see. Mama Bear said what them folks did was uncalled for. They should have the same treatment they did. They did that, little man. Believe me, I agree. In fact, what I even said for state's evidence, what they should have done was have either a computer generated image of what the box looks like, or have one set up in the courtroom, same dimensions. All right, here we go. All right. Give me a few more seconds, and hopefully I can have this where it's readable, and you'll be all caught up to a degree. All right, come on, pull up. Yeah, I know you. I know you from Bridge Channel, Elizabeth. I know both of you. You and Elizabeth Ross. In fact, I just got finished shouting Brent out along with Court TV and Law and Crime for her coverage of the Take Care of Maya civil trial. All right. All right. All right, so we know that we have a man standing trial in Florida on charges that he locked up his adopted teenage son in a box in his garage for hours at a time. Timothy Ferriter was indicted along with his wife Tracy in March of 2022 on charges of aggravated child abuse and false imprisonment. Though the couple was initially charged together, severed at Timothy's request, citing comments his wife made to police when he was not present. Police in Jupiter, Florida, began investigating the couple after their son was reported missing on January 28th of 2022. At the time, Tracy told police that the child who was missing had run away from home on several occasions before, quote unquote, and told officers that her adopted son had several behavioral disorders. Before the child's disappearance, officers were contacted by a contractor identified in court documents as Jack, who wanted to report that the couple had asked him to build an office in their garage. While he complied with their request, he noted what they asked for was odd. The room was built as an 8-foot by 8-foot space in the garage with its own ceiling and door. Jack further advised that the door had a deadbolt lock and a knob only on the outside, no knob inside. So if someone were inside the office, they would not be able to exit unless someone opened the door for them on the outside. Jack stated he was also instructed to build the space with electricity and install a window air conditioning unit, as well as a camera in the ceiling. Let me get this straight here. On January 30th, 2022, the child was still missing when police returned to the house to follow up. When police were given access to the house to look around, they noted toys in what was described as the children's bedroom. Had toys that were for younger ages. When asked about the child in question, Tracy allegedly told police that there was a structure the child had built in the garage. The officer described the room as having a small box spring and mattress with a sheet and a pillow, a desk with a folding chair, and a camera. It should be noted the room was a plain white structure with no paint or color on the walls and appeared to be bare drywall. The floor was a bare garage floor with part of an indoor-outdoor rug covering it. On January 31st, 2022, the child's school resource officer called Jupiter police officers after seeing the child on a security camera. When police spoke to the child, he described his room as 8x8 and said that his father gets aggressive and once slammed him against the wall by his neck and struck him in the face with an open hand. When officers asked further about the room in the garage, the child said that he was locked in the room for up to 16 to 18 hours and that he was given a bucket to use as a bathroom, which he then had to dump in the backyard and clean. Officers said the child said he ate alone in his room and was often given leftovers after the rest of the family ate. When asked why he left, the child said, quote, "Because I feel like no one loves me," end quote. Officers said the child's story was corroborated by thousands of videos found after serving a search warrant for the Ring device. In a motion filed on March 17, 2022, Ferriter accused police of illegally accessing data from his Google account via his underage children. Among the evidence expected to be introduced at trial is evidence of Ferriter's prior behavior in Arizona before the family moved to California. To Florida. I don't know where I'm getting California from. Prosecutors said that in the 2 to 3 years before the family moved, the child was moved out of the main house into a small, windowless room containing a bed separate from the rest of the family. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this. Prosecutors offered Timothy a plea agreement that would have sent him to jail for 24 months, 2 years, and would also have him on probation for 5. But he rejected it in the days leading up to the trial. If Ferriter is convicted, he faces up to 40 years behind bars. Let's see. We got Elizabeth Landers in the house. We've got Juju Bones. How you doing, Juju Bones? We've got Mama Bear. This is getting crazy. It's crazy, I tell you. Like I said, to catch Elizabeth up again, he had a plea arrangement. He would have been in jail for 2 years and on probation for 5 because the video evidence is. You get what I'm saying? But he decided to reject that deal and take his chances in this trial. And I'll say again, if he's convicted, and I got Mama Bear. Woo! I can't say I disagree with you. I cannot say I disagree with you. If Timothy Ferriter is convicted in this trial, he could face up to 40 years on charges of aggravated child abuse, on child neglect, and false imprisonment. Two years in prison, 5 years of probation. Elizabeth Landers says, "I'm glad he rejected it. Then he gets life and gets what he deserves there." Mama Bear says 40 years is still too sweet of a deal. Just saying. Maybe. But let me throw you this bone. We still have yet to hear a date for when Tracy Ferriter will be tried. She's got the same charges on her, and if and when she's convicted, she could be facing the same sentence. All right, now let's get back to testimony, back to cross-examination. RF is still on the stand, and
things up on the other side of the break.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, ketamine treatment in the case of...
I'm Julia Janae in West Palm Beach, Florida for the Boy in a Box trial. And this is Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
And welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Kelly Craft. The 17-year-old daughter of Timothy Ferriter told a Florida jury that she would go some days without seeing her younger adopted brother. She also testified the brother would be punished for minor things and that both of her parents were involved with the punishment. Right now, we are hearing from the alleged victim, the adopted son. So let's get you back into court.
And when you were at Tim and Tracy's house, you would have outbursts, right?
Yes, but it would not cause physical harm to myself or others.
Okay, but it would include things like breaking glass?
I've never broken. No, well, I stepped on one of my picture frames because I was in a dark room, just feeling my way around. But yeah.
So are you saying you've never broken glass at their house before, or that was the only time you broke glass?
Yes.
Okay. Which one? That was the only time, or you've never broken glass?
I've the only time I've broken glass is when I stepped on the picture frame.
Okay. And you'd agree that when you were at their house, you would rip things and throw things?
Yes.
And I think in your words, you intentionally broke the rules you knew about at least 5 times a week?
Usually more, but yes.
I want to start by talking about sort of before really young age, but from when you were about 10 years old, okay?
Okay.
At that time, you were going to school, I think at Sunrise Elementary and Immaculate Heart. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. At that time, you were having those outbursts we talked about at home.
Yes.
And if something happened at school, like some conduct at school, obviously your teachers were talking to Tim and Tracy, right?
Yes.
So then Tim and Tracy would find out and then they would react.
Yes.
And that would include discipline sometimes,
Yes.
right?
Uh-huh. All right. Okay, first off, let me apologize for the technical difficulties that I was having between my between the sudden pauses not of my own, and the freezing and all that. I sincerely apologize. I'm gonna try and finish out the rest of this edition so we can wrap everything up for tomorrow. So what I'm gonna do, to the best of my ability, mind you, I am going to take you right back into the courtroom so we can finish the cross-examination of the victim in the boy in the box case.
Hold on a second.
Honestly, I forgot.
That's okay. Is it
Lauren,
fair
can you
to
hold a sec? Because I need to focus on you and him, so
That's
I
okay.
can't do it. All right, you may continue, Ms. Moran.
And so because of that technology breach, you were restricted from technology at home too, right?
Yes.
So you weren't allowed to have like iPads and stuff in your room, so that stuff had to be removed.
Yes.
I want to talk about something else that happened at Immaculate Heart that your parents did find out about. Do you remember? Was Miss McCoy, if you remember?
Yes.
And you told Miss McCoy that you were allowed to make an announcement, right?
Yes.
And the announcement that you made was really derogatory towards your sister?
Yes.
And it made your sister cry?
Yeah.
And your parents found out about that?
Yep.
So your parents,
Yes.
and they both came to the school,
Yes.
and you both spoke with the teacher separately. I think you brought a box cutter to school?
Yes, that was at Basis Charter Schools.
Oh, that was at Basis? How did your parents respond to that?
They locked me in my room.
But a box cutter is a dangerous thing, right?
It was more like a, yeah, it's a dangerous thing.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about Basis Academy and how your parents responded to some of the stuff there, okay?
All right.
Okay. At Basis, you also attempted to hack into the school computers,
I did, yes.
and because of that, you had to get your technology removed again.
Yes.
You also said something in class that was inappropriate,
Yes.
and it was asking. After that inappropriate thing, your parents did find out about it, right?
Yes.
And they were mad?
Yes.
Because that's not something you should say, right?
Yes.
At Basis Academy, you also chemistry. You stole a student's tablet?
No.
Did you steal a computer and a tablet? Maybe it didn't belong
Oh,
to you.
yeah, I did.
Okay, and did that belong to another student?
Yes.
Were your parents mad when that happened too?
Yes.
And did you get disciplined for that?
Yes.
So it looks like a couple times you're kind of doing things and you're just, regardless of what they're doing, you're not stopping. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
You did a search on that computer that you jailbroke at Basis?
I jailbroke a what's it called again? A tablet, but not a computer.
Okay, so you jailbroke the tablet, right?
Yeah.
And then you did a search on there?
Yeah.
And that search was concerning to your mom and dad?
Yeah.
I won't talk about what the search is, but is it fair to say that it was something that it was understandably concerning to them because it sounded a little violent?
Yeah.
Do you remember playing with Pierce when you were in Arizona and getting facial injuries?
Well, yeah.
Did your parents tell you to stop and not go so fast?
Yeah.
But you still did it?
Yeah.
And that hurt. Did you remember him getting a lot of injuries on his face? It's okay. It's like a, just wait a second. The test.
All right, I think the emergency alert is over. You may continue, Ms. Moran. Well,
Sure.
not so quick.
We're still having an emergency.
All right, I think it's safe now, Ms. Moran, to continue. You may. Go ahead.
May I approach the
Yeah,
witness?
yeah.
Showing the
Yeah, I'd already said yes. You must not have heard me.
It was the emergency. I'm showing you what I have marked as Defense Exhibit 16 for identification purposes only. That's a photo of Pierce.
Yes.
And is that what Pierce's face looked like after he fell off that bike?
Yes.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what his face looked like after he fell off the bike? Your Honor, at this time, the defense would seek to move into evidence Defense Exhibit 16, striking all marks of him.
Any objection?
No.
Court receives and accepts Defense Exhibit 16 in evidence without objection.
So, it looks like Pierce was a baby when this happened, right? Is that a yes?
Yes.
And he did really get hurt on his face?
Yes.
And this, is it fair to say this really concerned your parents? Is it fair to say anytime a baby gets hurt on their face, it's concerning?
Sustained as to that question, you can rephrase it in a way that's proper, Ms. Moran.
How did your parents respond when this happened to you? Were they mad at you?
Yeah.
And they did ask you not to push him so hard, right?
Yeah.
But you did it anyway?
Yeah.
While you were in Arizona, do you remember your friend Ariana?
Yes.
Were you actually tutoring her?
I actually tutored her.
Yeah. And you stole her dad's credit card?
I stole I just memorized the numbers. That's it.
And then you used his credit card?
Yeah.
And when your dad found out about that, he did sort of like grab you and get mad at you because of what you did, right?
Yeah.
Want want to talk a little bit about Florida. You were only there for 6 weeks.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And was that so you could conduct an experiment?
4.
4?
Yeah.
It's fair to say a 4-year-old should not be drinking beer that could hurt them?
That was the point of the experiment.
I know. But that could hurt a 4-year-old, right?
It could.
And that's something that your parents found out about too?
Yeah.
And they got mad at you?
Yeah.
When you were at school in Florida, what school did you go to in Florida?
After I came back from Arizona,
Yes.
I went to Independence Middle School.
So when you were at Independence Middle School, you had an incident where you, pretended to be, you went into a classroom of a teacher, right?
Yeah.
A teacher that you don't know?
Yeah.
And that you pretended to be a member of the school board?
Yeah.
And you convinced that teacher that you were in fact a member of the school board?
Yeah.
And you told her that you were grading her that day?
I wouldn't say grading, but critiquing her.
Or evaluating her, right?
Evaluating, yeah.
And that's something, I mean, it looks like you're pretty good at kind of pretending sometimes and telling stories.
Sustained, rephrase.
Is that would you characterize yourself as someone who likes to pretend sometimes?
Yes.
And tell stories?
Yes.
And those stories can be really detailed?
Yes.
You like to add details to those stories?
Yes.
Do you think sometimes you have an impulse to tell stories and kind of make something up for people to believe?
Yes.
Overruled.
That's a yes?
You can answer. I think you did answer.
Yeah,
yes.
he did.
And the blind man says, now I see that we are at the end of the prosecution's cross-examination of the victim. And before I get out of here, there is one more video I would like to present to you. And that is concerning for some what it was like to see and hear live the victim in this case on the witness stand. So we're going to take you to Court TV's Julia Janae via closing arguments with my main man, 50 grand, Vinny Politan. And she's gonna give you what it was like just hearing the young man's testimony.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And today was the day that boy in the box that we've been talking about who we're not going to name by name, that's why I'm calling him the boy who's in the box, testified in court, not in a satellite courtroom the way his sister did, but in the courtroom with his father as his father watched him. Compelling stuff. Take a look. There's everyone inside the courtroom. We didn't get to see him, and the cameras, yeah, they pick up some things, but you have to be in that room to fully understand the tension and what it was like. So let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent, Julia Janae, outside the Palm Beach County Courthouse. She was inside the courtroom today. Julia, great to see you. Please describe for us what it was like in the courtroom as adopted son is testifying against his father.
Vinny, good to be with you. The jury could feel the details from this son on the stand. So it was a good thing that prosecutors said that he wanted to be there in the courtroom, unlike his sister, because the state did want him in a separate satellite courtroom to really protect these child witnesses, not have them face off with basically their parents there inside of the courtroom. But he was able to describe for them not eating dinners with his family, being locked away, eating the dinner alone inside of that room, that he was scared at times, that his father was aggressive with him. He came off, though, as very self-assured. He was really mature for the 16-year-old teenager that he is. We know that he takes advanced classes. He is good at math and science, and he was very articulate on the stand, especially for someone his age. But I noticed he didn't make any eye contact with his father, who was watching everything he did from the defense table, and his mother, Tracy Ferriter, who really didn't move at all as she sat in the gallery on the first row, listening to her son detail what his life was like, especially the 6 weeks before he ran away, Vinny.
Had to be absolutely compelling. So did he describe for this jury what it was like to be in that box?
He did. And, you know, the prosecutors emphasized the word box, and they say it was a cell-like structure. The defense calls it a room. The parents at one point told police it was a timeout place. But here we could hear from him in his own words what it was like, this structure that he one day overheard his parents talking about building for him again in their Florida home.
Did you like being in that room?
No.
Did you want to be in the room?
No.
How did it make you feel?
To me, being locked in a room, it's dehumanizing. It's almost as bad as genocide. It's saddening to abuse a child that was just acting like a child, never thinking of what an adult would think to do to a child that would succumb his or her efforts in daily life to succeed. Suffering from emotional pain, suffering, trauma.
You know, his response to that question, it's like everyone leaned in to listen to how he would describe what we've heard about. The jury also saw this video for the first time, the inside of that box-like structure. That was Tim Ferriter installing the Ring camera that would watch the movements of his son at all times. And you can see there the mattress on the floor, the desk in the corner, and you can't really see it there, but we know at one point there was an orange bucket that he was told that's what he would use for his bathroom when he was locked inside, Vinny.
So did he talk about being abused?
He did. And, you know, the way he answered even that question about the room, he had this almost intellectual approach to it, like it was more philosophical than something that happened to him. We know there are going to be experts who will likely talk more about what this must have been like for him and the trauma involved. But he was asked the question about whether his father's actions were abusive, particularly once they moved to Florida, and other times when he was in Arizona, which would have been about 2 months before they moved to Florida.
Were there instances where the defendant in this case, Tim Ferriter, acted towards you in a way that was physically aggressive?
repeat the question?
Was there ever any physical aggression towards you in Florida?
There was instances of grabbing and pushing, but otherwise, no.
Okay.
Physical contact such as punching, hitting, smacking.
Right, none of that happened during the time frame in Florida?
No.
Were there times where he was verbally aggressive to you in Florida?
Yes.
Now, the jury, they're taking a lot of notes. They took notes about this, but on cross-examination, they also took notes about what this son was doing, some of his actions, the way that he was acting out, and it seemed that they were picking up on how he did seem a bit proud of some of those instances of violence against other people.
Can you describe for us, what is his behavior? What is the behavior we're talking about here?
Well, if you hear the defense's side of this, they say he was really someone who was almost out of control, that the parents couldn't predict what was going to happen next with him. And they outlined it, didn't come out on direct, but on cross-examination, they were able to outline these instances, especially with his younger brother, who was essentially a toddler when they say he hurt him. They showed a picture in court where he had an injury to his face. They talked about a classmate that he punched and one that he threatened with a screwdriver in his face. He brought a box cutter to school and he hacked a girl's computer to look at videos of other girls getting run over by a train. So it just seemed that it was not necessarily constant behavior, but that it was unpredictable and they didn't know how to handle it. And it seemed that it erupted into this decision to keep him locked away so that they could stop him from doing anything that was wrong that they couldn't control. Then the defense attorney, you see her there, that's Priya Miraj, she was asking him the question about his parents and how he felt. This was on cross-examination, and he really shocked us with something that he said here.
Do you think it's hard to think of good memories when everyone around you has a bad image of Tim and Tracy in their mind?
I can easily recall the good times, but I don't have a bad image of Tim and Tracy. They just made a mistake. They just acting out of frantic surprise of my actions. They weren't. I believe that they weren't trying to do any harm. Yeah. I believe that people should recognize that that was a mistake and forgive them and move on.
I appreciate that.
And we saw some emotion from Tracy Ferriter in the courtroom when he said that. He also constantly referred to his parents as Tim and Tracy, never mom and dad or my mother and my father, Vinny.
That's fascinating, that part as well. Now, his sister, right, also took the stand today?
Yeah, she was back on the stand for cross-examination, totally different demeanor from his sister. Even though she's older than him, she came across much younger. She's 17 years old. She was very nervous on the stand. She was shy. You could barely hear her voice at times. There were technical difficulties, but really it was because we couldn't hear her voice in the mic because she was in a satellite room. And she had a much more emotional seeming response to what was happening to her brother. Take a listen to her answering the question from the prosecutor about whether or not she recalled having any concerns for her brother's life.
You could hear the physical abuse when it was happening there. Yes. And did you in fact see an instance where he was pressed up against a wall? Yes. Okay. Were his feet on the ground when that happened? I don't remember. Okay. Did that incident scare you? Yes. What were you worried about? That he was grabbing too tight, that something worse than just hurt him. I was worried that one day, that he might
Objection. Overruled.
that he would accidentally kill my brother.
And if you couldn't make it out, it was hard for us to even hear it in the courtroom, but she said she was worried her dad would accidentally kill her brother. Powerful testimony from the sister.
And how long and how often was he locked in the garage in that box? And I call it a box because to be a bedroom, you need a window and you need a closet. Like anyone who's ever bought a house knows that. But there's like no window. So how long is he locked in that box at a time?
Yeah, and access to a bathroom, right, Vinny? He didn't have any means of getting to a
Locked
bathroom
in,
when
'cause
he's
the lock's on the outside.
that room.
Yep.
Exactly. So the most time the prosecution says he was in that box was 18 hours at a time. And they say there were times he was locked in during the day, that he was there in the dark, but it wasn't something where he didn't go to school every day. So he was out. There were times that he was doing yard work. There were times when he was able to move around the house. They acknowledged that he was able at times to move about, and it wasn't a 24/7 thing, but that it was beyond normal for them to keep him inside of this room hours on end, seemingly constant, where you have him being locked inside of this area.
Julia Janae in West Palm Beach tonight. Thank you so much, Julia. Appreciate it. All right, let's bring our think tank. Join us live in the studio tonight. Criminal defense attorney, entertainment attorney, former assistant DA in Atlanta. Also did that down in Florida. Daryl Cohn is with us. Also joining us tonight,
coverage of the Boy in the Box trial. Tomorrow, 3 o'clock in the East, high noon in the West. We're gonna get the perspective from psychologist. We're gonna get his testimony. We're gonna talk about what that psychologist is seeing and how he determines what that young man went through, and if he looks at it the same way that the young man himself did. First off, I want to thank everybody that showed up in the chat and apologize to them all at the same time. Mama Bear, Juju Bones, Elizabeth Lander, all of you, I thank you for showing up. I thank you for your contributions to the conversation, and I apologize for the technical difficulties we had. If that turns you away, I promise I'll try to do better next time. Shout out to everybody at Court TV, from Julie Grant, Ted Rollins, Kelly Craft, Judge Ashley Wilcott, Michael Ayala, Julia Janae. All of you are doing a spectacular job in coverage of the Boy in the Box trial, and I look to see what's coming next on Tuesday. And of course, technical difficulties and all, I can't do this without you guys. Time and time again, and I'll say it again until the last breath leaves my body. You guys are what makes Bethea's Byte Reloaded run. This is your true crime engine, and you are the power behind it. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you so much for joining me. I thank you for joining me on this ride. You have many ways to get in contact with me on Facebook, X, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, email. Use one of them, and be sure to get at me. I'm looking forward to it, as I am looking forward to tomorrow, high noon. Until then, Ernest Bethea, The Last Outlaw, Bethea's Byte Reloaded, The Boy in the Box Trial, Florida versus Ferriter. We'll pick it up tomorrow, and that'll be the last day of the recap before court reconvenes on Tuesday. So I'll see you tomorrow, 3 o'clock in the East, high noon in the West. Until then, you all know what to do. No, wait, back up. Where's my manners? I forgot to say what I always tell you. I love you guys. Take that love, spread it around. Be good to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Love others. That way I can see you back here next time for Bethea's Byte Reloaded. Until then, you guys know what to do. Bite this. Hey guys, this is The Last Outlaw saying thank you to all who have watched and subscribed to Bethea's Byte Reloaded, your true crime and drama-free destination. I couldn't do this without you. Did you enjoy this video? Are you looking to get more information about what you have seen and heard here? Are you looking to give feedback as to how I can present this better? Here's what you do. Like this video. The more eyes on it, the more this information gets spread to others, which makes it a step closer to justice served. Share this to your social media. Again, with more eyes on this, the closer we get to seeing justice served. Drop me a comment. Whether it's on the topic or the presentation, I will respond to your theories and ideas. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button to show your support for this little true crime engine, powered by you. Set your notifications to all for future videos. Be sure to follow Bethea's Byte Reloaded all over social media. At Bethea's Byte Reloaded True Crime on Facebook. At EKB316 on X, formerly known as Twitter. At Bethea's Byte Reloaded on YouTube. At EKB316 on Instagram. At King of Hearts 316 2021 on TikTok. You can email me at kingofhearts316_09 at outlook.com. This is your home for news without the drama, your opinions, lively debates, your voice heard, and above all else, justice served. This is Bethea's Byte, and it's reloaded.